right on the ball and staying close to the action. Welcome to the Ref Show. 5 red cards in the Premier League. Too many or just not enough? A great piece of officiating opens up the title race, but Manchester City get lucky with their penalty victory. Joining me, Alan Biggs. Keith Hackett returns to the Ref Show. Welcome back, Keith.
Thank you.
And also Mark Halsey is in residence this week. Keith and Mark, I know that you were both at the Etihad Stadium, both pretty much where some of the main action was. And let's start with that game by mentioning the Nigerian delegation that you hosted before we actually talk about the action.
Well, it's great to see them, and Manchester City was superb. They provided the box, food, great facilities for us to be able to run a course with them, where we prepared them prior to the match, Roger and Mark, in terms of looking at specific things. And I have to tell you, a woeful performance from Andre Marina.
OK, we'll go into that shortly. In a way, it was a bit of a learning exercise for the Nigerians if they witnessed it. Not what you want to see, is it?
I think the amazing thing from the Nigerians, look, we're talking about they're elite referees from Nigeria. They're FIFA referees and assistant referees. They were spot on. We didn't have to tell them. We didn't have to pull any sort of scenario out. They were bang on with all the decisions, which was terrific. Really.
We'll go through those decisions in a moment, and we'll take the 2 games that have kind of changed the title race, changed the nature of it, and big calls in both. But let's go first to West Ham and Swansea. Chris Foy was refereeing this. Great win for West Ham, taking them to 3rd in the Premier League, which is unexpected. A major talking point, really, about the sending off of Swansea's goalkeeper, Lucas Fabianski, sent off for blocking Sarko outside the area, come outside the area. But 2 questions, Mark. Did Sarko handle first, and was it denial of a goal-scoring opportunity?
Well, the answer to your first one, Alan, is yes, it was a deliberate handball. Quite clearly, you can see he used his arm and it takes it past the goalkeeper. You don't know where the ball's going to go, whether he's going to chest it or and then kick it out. And then the second incident, for me, it is not a denial of a goal-scoring opportunity. You know, you've got to look at the criteria, what's laid down in law. You know, direction of play, direction of ball, distance from goal to the offence, the number of defenders in the vicinity, and I just don't think that did not meet the criteria laid down in law for a denial. And obviously, you know, you talk about the direction of play, direction of ball. Where was the ball going? Where was the play going? It wasn't going towards goal. The player wasn't going towards goal, and it's clearly, you know, wide of the mark for me.
This has been argued both ways by refereeing experts. Keith, what's your view?
Well, I think, first of all, my observation is that if you're going to sell a big decision, you've got to sell it. And I thought he messed around the edges of it. He didn't give me the confidence that what he was doing was going to give me the right end result. Because in that situation, if you're going to move somebody off the field with a red card, then get it out and prevent all the nonsense, it looked to me as though he was talked into it. So, first of all, it was a handball. Let's give the referee a little bit of saying that he probably didn't see it.
He wouldn't have seen that. Because
of the bodies protecting it. But then you don't jump in on a dogzo unless the criteria is fulfilled. And as Marcus said, the ball was running parallel to the penalty area line. It wasn't going towards the goal. And frankly, I don't think the player would have gained possession of that ball, remembering that the whistle had gone and the players had stopped, apart from him. So for me, it was all round a poor decision. It didn't satisfy law. It was compounded by the fact that he didn't see the handball, and as a result, the game again turned on that particular decision.
And as we speak, Swansea are appealing, so you would think that they've got a fair case there.
But just going on what Keith was touching on, what Keith was saying, that Chris Foy, I mean, is a very experienced referee, and to be fair, he refereed the game well up until then. But it's like everything we said before. It's, you know, referees like a goalkeeper. You know, you can having a great game for 75 minutes, and all of a sudden one big decision, and perhaps it goes against the team. But Chris, being an experienced referee, for me, he should have just played on and done nothing, and no one would have said a word. Just let the game carry on, because no one was looking for it, because the player carried on going for the ball to get the cross, get the cross in.
Another red card. This is in the Aston Villa Leicester City game. 2-1 to Villa. Craig Pawson's refereeing. A straight red for Paul Konchesky. Dangerous play. Was there a question mark over that?
Definitely. I mean, if you look at that challenge that Paul Konchesky put in, for me was a reckless challenge. Now, if you go back to the first half, the challenge that Vardy put in on Westwood, I mean, that was brutality. That was, I mean, for me, I mean, I watched the game and I didn't have to see a replay for that. That was a red card. That was endangering the player's safety with excessive force. And once again, I keep talking about, I know I keep going on about it all season, about recognition of offences, recognition of foul, non-foul, recognition of careless, reckless and excessive force. And you can understand why the players are getting so frustrated with referees now, Keith, because we're not recognising these offences.
So you're saying Jamie Vardy was a red, you're saying that Konchesky was a yellow then, Keith? Eh?
Well, I think that scissor challenge, where the players come off the ground, is reckless. And the word that I would also add to it, it had malice. And that, again, is part of the criteria that the referee builds into his thinking. Mark is exactly right. I mean, I'm getting confused myself. I know fully what's a careless, what's a reckless, and what's reckless with excessive force. They're easy to identify. We talk about positioning and movement. We've covered that forever here. But these guys are actually getting into reasonable positions, and then they're making error on judgment.
There were also 8 yellow cards in that game besides the sending off, which you perhaps wouldn't expect Villa against Leicester.
I mean, but sorry, Keith, but looking at that game, okay, we've got Craig Pawson, who's a good young referee that's come into the Premier League, okay. It's his second season. They're nominating him for FIFA. They're pushing him. And Aston Villa v Leicester is a massive, massive local derby. It's a Midlands derby. And I'm sorry, Craig Pawson is not ready yet to come in and referee those types of games, Keith. I've refereed those games.
Is Villa and Leicester's rivalry so great, though? There's a fair...
Well, it's a derby. It's
30 or 40
a
miles
derby.
apart,
I mean, I've refereed them before. I think Keith has. I think Roger Dilks has. And they will tell you they are tough games, especially for a new referee coming into the Premier League. Now, listen, last time Craig Pawson was on the telly, on a live game, it was Hull v Tottenham, and there were some challenges going on in there that that we saw that he got wrong with the Livermore challenge. So why keep putting him in the shop window? And we don't want to destroy him. You know, he's a young referee. It's like a young player. Put him in and put him out. Give him the right games to give him the confidence then to go on and referee these games.
OK, Anthony Taylor we move on to now, and he was in charge of Stoke 3, Arsenal 2, one of the surprise results of the weekend. Although, is it really a surprise when Arsenal lose away at a team like Stoke? It probably isn't. They were 3-0 down. There was a red card in that one as well. This was Callum Chambers of Arsenal. This was for 2 yellows, and that was among 7 yellows in total. Your thoughts?
Well, I think my thoughts are that the guys need to adopt a process of proactive management. We've said it before, which will avoid some of the unnecessary yellow cards. You know, I mean, 7 in a game, 8 in a game. Where are we going? You know, I mean, it's only 12 months ago that, and I remind you that the PGMOL's boss was saying quite categorically, we're wonderful. We've got yellow cards down. We're at 3 per game, and life is sweet. Well, at the moment, then, life is not so sweet, and the yellow cards are spoiling the game, and they're exposing the player to that second yellow that goes red. And that's the difficulty.
And it boils down to the recognition of careless, reckless and excessive.
Exactly.
And I think some of the referees they're just setting their tolerance levels too low.
They're using the card as a real front-end management process, when in fact we talked in the past about the stepped process. The quiet word on the run that all referees should use. Then there's the public rebuke, bring the captain across and say, look, I want an improvement. Then you can go for the yellow card. And when you're issuing the yellow card, talk to the player. I mean, we're seeing yellow cards being issued and everybody's standing around. Is it me? You know, I mean, manage the event and say to the guy, look, I'm yellow carding next time it'll turn to red. So let's avoid it.
I think also just touching on that just quickly. I think it's the evaluation system as well that's not helping.
Yeah, you've mentioned this before. The evaluation system.
Well, I think
to be looked at.
I know we're going back a little, Alan, but if we take the Man City game.
Okay, we'll come to that in a minute.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we'll come to that.
Fine.
And maybe apply the point. Just to clear up before we go right to the top of the table, QPR and Burnley, that was 2-0 to QPR, John Moss. And just to clear up another red card in this one, this was Charlie Austin who scored for Rangers and then was sent off. That was a second yellow.
I think Charlie was fortunate to stay on for the first challenge. I thought that was a red card in itself.
Right, so no queries about the end result, that he deserved to go. So let's go right to the top then. The first game of the weekend was at St James's Park. That was Newcastle against Chelsea, and what a result this was, with Chelsea losing for the first time this season. Great atmosphere, 2-1-2 Newcastle. Martin Atkinson in charge, and the second Newcastle goal is from Cisse, is one that deserves a mention in Martin's favour.
I mean, you know, we've been critical of Martin, but here he'd got his head and brain in gear and vision. So he didn't jump for the whistle. There was a foul on the halfway line. And he very clearly signalled advantage. So the signal was right. The movement then from him to gain the angle to watch the progress that eventually resulted in a goal. Fantastic piece of refereeing. Great to see. And you suddenly think, wow, he has got it in him. But Mark has made the observation. I think some of these guys, they're going into the game with a high level of fear factor, or they're going into a game like almost complacent. Yeah. There isn't that sharpness. Here, I'm pleased to say, we can say positively, Martin Atkinson, well done this weekend.
Yeah. And his performances have been improving. He's been getting some plaudits other than this in recent weeks.
He's a very experienced referee, and I thought he refereed the game really, really well. And it's pleasing to see him do well. It's pleasing to see him do well.
Absolutely. A nice guy, and I know that unanimously from all those who've met him. There was a sending off in that one as well. This was Martin Taylor. That was 2 yellows. Yeah, routine.
No complaints.
You know, can I make an observation? So there's a player, he's got a yellow card, and he hasn't quite got the grips with himself. His self-control. That's when the manager comes in and goes, come on, let's have you off. And managers seem to not do that anymore.
They don't take the signals.
They just seem to be, OK, he's got a yellow, let's let him continue as he is.
OK, well, let's go right back to where we started. To the Etihad, because of course Chelsea's defeat opened the way for Manchester City to close the gap to 3 points if they beat Everton, which they did, just 1-0. Before we go on to the contentious issues in this game, Andre Mariner was appointed to it. Did you find that surprising?
I just sat there in the stadium thinking to myself, there's the guy carrying the board, Mark Clattenburg, and he's there watching, and Andre's in the middle. Andre delivered a performance which was worse than the Mike Jones performance that we commented on earlier in the season. It was simply pathetic. And I mean that on the basis that he didn't seem to be switched on. He moved around the field of play with no sort of aced, no sort of let's get up and go. He just went through the motions. And what unravelled in front of us was I don't know how he could give a penalty kick. That's the first bit. And the thing was, he was in a reasonably good position.
I think it stems from in the second minute when he missed the Aguero foul, and when Aguero went off. And for me, if you're going to, when you go into a game, I've been there and refereed these games. If you get these small decisions right, it then leads on to your confidence, and then it leads on to getting the bigger decisions, and going on to the penalty. I mean, I was surprised. I don't know whether Andre's view was slightly blocked, and he guessed, but it was just a coming together. Now I looked at that, and then I looked at the caution later on in the game, in about the 89th minute of Barkley. Now he cautioned him for simulation. What was the difference between Milner and Barkley? There was none. There was none. You know, do nothing. What he should have done was just carried on, no penalty, play on. You can see Milner getting up trying to get the ball. Yeah. And he should have done exactly the same with Barkley. Don't stop the play, just let it go, play on.
Mark, I understand the point about Aguero, and it was a pity to see top-class player having to be taken off. And Mark is right, he did miss it. But, you know, referees at this level, one, they're paid professionals. Their expectation is they perform well. And if you make a bad decision, and all referees make bad decisions, right, what you have to do is park them.
Park them, move on.
And not let it affect the ongoing process. There were too many poor decisions. There were too many sort of come see, come saw issues in this game that if I'd have been the boss on the touchline...
French.
Yes. But if I'd have been on the touchline and said... you know, I mean, somebody asked me, could you substitute the referee at half-time? Somebody asked me that. And I went, I think it would be good for the game if you could.
This is somebody else who thinks you're still in charge of England's referees.
I get that. But the great thing was it was actually Ricky Hatton.
I've got to say...
The boxer.
Yeah.
The hitman.
He should still be in charge, and I would still be refereeing.
Well, that's another story, another debate, and probably one that we won't have here on this programme. We're sticking to what's happening now. There should have been 2 red cards. That penalty should never have been awarded. And Barkley gets 2 yellows in succession, I think, for simulation, or 2 in 3. 2 in 3 matches. Just winding up with Liverpool 0, Sunderland 0. That was Neil Swarbrick. No major issues there. Hull 0, West Brom 0. Michael Oliver. West Brom there had an early penalty which was saved, hence that finished goalless, and Lee Mason was in charge of Spurs and Crystal Palace. And again, I think pretty well done to those 3 guys at the end. So there were some good performances. There were also some very questionable ones, and the debate will go on. Thanks as ever to Keith Hackett and to Mark Halsey. Thank you to you for watching, and join us again next week, please, for the Ref Show. Bye-bye until then. Bye-bye.